Zelma Adeyemi opened her eyes to the soft morning light streaming through her window. A small smile touched her lips as she remembered what day it was, her 30th birthday. She had imagined waking up to cheerful voices, warm hugs, and maybe even the smell of her favorite breakfast. But the house was quiet. From her room, she could hear her mother calling out instructions to her brother, reminding him not to be late for his job interview. Her younger sister rushed past the hallway, too busy to even glance inside. Zelma waited, hoping someone would look her way, maybe notice the sparkle of expectation in her eyes. But no one did. She walked into the kitchen, the air thick with the smell of frying eggs and toast. Her mother barely looked up. Her siblings laughed over something trivial, their words blending with the clatter of dishes. Not a single happy birthday. Zelma forced a small smile, trying to hide the ache in her chest. She quietly took a slice of bread and slipped out of the house before anyone noticed she was gone. At the bus stop, she stood alone, watching the city wake up. People hurried past, strangers lost in their own worlds. She blinked back tears, whispering to herself that it was just another day, even though her heart knew it wasn't. As she waited, her new neighbor, Tari Okon, waved from across the road. He was always kind, always polite, but today his eyes lingered a little longer, noticing the sadness she couldn't hide. Later that day, as she returned home, she found a small folded note tucked under her door. It simply read, "You deserve to be seen." Her heart trembled. Someone had noticed. That evening, her family gathered in the living room. Laughter filled the air as they celebrated her brother's promotion. The dining table was set beautifully, but Zelma's name wasn't anywhere in the conversation. Feeling invisible, she stepped outside to breathe, her eyes filling again. Then she saw it, soft lights glowing from her neighbor's balcony. Curious, she walked closer. There stood Tari, smiling beside a cake, surrounded by neighbors cheering her name. A colorful banner hung above, "Happy birthday, Zelma." Her hands covered her mouth in shock. The music, laughter, and joy drew her family outside. Her mother froze, realizing what they had forgotten. Zelma smiled genuinely for the first time that day. In that moment, she understood. Sometimes the people who see you aren't your family by blood, but by heart. The morning was full of noise and movement as Zelma's mother rushed around the kitchen, ironing clothes and giving quick instructions. Her brother sat nervously at the table, practicing answers for his big interview, while her younger sister searched for a missing file. Everyone seemed busy, talking loudly and laughing about how important the day was for him. Zelma sat quietly at the corner of the table, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had already gone cold. She looked at their faces, waiting for someone to notice her, waiting for one simple word, "Happy birthday." But no one said it. Her mother placed a plate of toast in front of her brother and reminded him to smile during the interview. Zelma's heart tightened. The house smelled of fresh coffee and warm bread, but the moment felt cold to her. She picked up her spoon slowly, stirring her tea just to keep herself busy. Her sister brushed past her chair, knocking her bag slightly without even apologizing. Zelma forced a weak smile, hoping maybe someone would remember if she waited long enough. But time kept moving, and the excitement in the room only grew around her brother. She cleared her plate quietly, hoping her silence would draw attention, but no one even looked her way. Her mother's proud voice filled the room as she fixed her son's tie and wished him luck. Zelma stood beside the sink, pretending to rinse dishes while trying not to cry. She had always celebrated everyone else's birthdays with effort, baking cakes, buying gifts, decorating the house. Yet now on her special day, she was invisible in her own home. When her brother finally left, the door closing behind him, Zelma stared at the empty table. Crumbs and half-empty cups were all that was left. She wanted to remind them, to whisper the truth of the day, but her voice stayed locked inside her chest. Her mother sighed with relief, saying how proud she was of her son. Zelma forced a nod, hiding her pain. She grabbed her bag, ready to leave for work. As she stepped out, the cool morning air touched her face, and she whispered softly to herself, "Happy birthday, Zelma." Because if no one else remembered, at least she would. Zelma walked out of the house without a sound, her bag hanging loosely from her shoulder. The morning sun was soft, but her heart felt heavy. She closed the gate behind her, hearing her family's laughter fade in the distance. No one had noticed her leaving. No one had said a word. She took a deep breath and began her slow walk toward the bus stop, trying to calm the storm inside her chest. Every step felt heavier than the last, each one reminding her how forgotten she was. At the corner, she saw the same busy street she crossed every morning. Children running to school, vendors calling out prices, cars honking endlessly. Life moved as usual. But for her, it felt painfully still. She sat on the wooden bench at the bus stop, clutching her handbag like it held all her broken pieces together. Her reflection in the glass shelter showed tired eyes and a faint, practiced smile. She tried to lift her lips again, but it only made the tears sting harder. A group of friends nearby laughed loudly, sharing snacks and taking pictures. Zelma watched them for a moment, and then looked away quickly before the tears could escape. She didn't want anyone to see her sadness. She bit her lip and whispered under her breath, pretending everything was fine. Her birthday had started like any other day, but now she wished it would just end. She wanted to disappear, even for a little while, where no one expected her to be strong. The bus arrived, and she stepped inside, choosing a seat by the window. As the city rolled past, she rested her head against the glass, letting out a small sigh. Her phone stayed silent, no calls, no messages. Not even a reminder from social media could save her from the ache of being invisible. She scrolled through her contacts, thinking of someone to text, but she stopped herself. What would she say? It's my birthday, and no one remembered? That would only make the emptiness feel louder. When the bus stopped near her office, she wiped her eyes quickly, forcing another smile. She told herself she wouldn't cry anymore. But as she stepped down, her heart whispered a quiet truth she couldn't ignore. Sometimes silence hurts more than words ever could. Every morning, when Zelma walked out of her gate, she would see her new neighbor, Tari Okon, standing by his small garden watering the flowers. He always greeted her with a warm smile and a polite good morning. At first, she only nodded, too lost in her thoughts to say much. But day by day, his kind eyes and gentle voice began to feel like a small light in her otherwise lonely routine. Tari was the kind of person who noticed little things. The way someone walked, the tone in their voice, the heaviness behind a fake smile. And lately, he had started to notice that Zelma's cheerful good morning didn't reach her eyes anymore. One morning, when she tried to smile, her voice cracked slightly as she greeted him. Tari tilted his head, studying her face quietly before replying. There was concern in his eyes, but he didn't ask questions. Instead, he handed her a small flower from his garden and said, "A bright day deserves a little color." Zelma looked down at the flower, surprised by his thoughtfulness. For the first time that week, she felt seen, even if just for a brief moment. She tucked the flower into her bag and carried its soft scent with her all day. As days passed, their morning greetings became a comforting habit. Sometimes they exchanged small jokes, sometimes only a wave, but it was enough to make Zelma feel less invisible. Tari had a calm presence, the kind that didn't demand attention yet offered quiet understanding. One rainy morning, he noticed she didn't have an umbrella and hurried across the street to cover her with his. They stood close under the shared shade, and she smiled genuinely for the first time in a long while. Though they barely knew each other, Tari could sense her sadness without her saying a single word. He didn't pry or push. He simply showed kindness through small actions, a smile, a wave, a shared umbrella. Zelma began to look forward to seeing him each morning. In a world that had forgotten to notice her, Tari's gentle attention reminded her that someone still cared. Without realizing it, those brief moments outside her gate were slowly healing a heart that had quietly been breaking. "You deserve to be seen." The words were written neatly on a small cream-colored card. Zelma found it tucked under her door one morning, and for a moment, she just stared at it, unsure what to feel. Her heart beat faster as she ran her fingers over the paper. It wasn't signed, but she somehow knew it was from Tari. No one else had noticed her enough to say something so kind. She stood there in silence, reading those 5 words again and again, and each time they felt warmer, like a gentle hand reaching for her in the dark. All morning she couldn't stop thinking about the note. It was such a small thing, yet it carried so much meaning. She had spent weeks feeling invisible, like a shadow moving through her own life, unseen by those closest to her. But here was someone reminding her that she mattered. When she stepped outside, she saw Tari standing near his garden as usual, pretending to trim a few leaves. Their eyes met, and he smiled softly, not saying a word. Zelma smiled back, clutching her bag a little tighter, knowing now for sure that it was him. Throughout the day, she kept the card safely in her purse. Every time she felt low, she opened it again, letting those words fill the empty spaces her family's silence had left behind. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it touched her heart more than any expensive gift could. For the first time in a long while, she walked with her head held a little higher. She realized that being seen wasn't about attention or celebration. It was about being understood. That evening, when she returned home, the sky was painted with shades of orange and gold. She glanced at Tari's balcony and saw the soft glow of a lantern. He waved, and she waved back, her chest warm with gratitude. The note had done more than just lift her mood. It had awakened something inside her. It reminded her that kindness still existed in the quiet corners of life. As she placed the card on her bedside table, she whispered to herself, "Maybe I do deserve to be seen." For the first time in years, Zelma went to sleep with a genuine smile, comforted by the thought that someone truly cared. That night, the house was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of rich food. Zelma walked in quietly after work, her steps slow, her heart already tired. From the living room, she could hear her mother's proud voice talking about her brother's new promotion. The table was decorated beautifully with flowers, candles, and a big meal waiting to be served. Her mother rushed around joyfully, fixing plates, while her siblings helped set the table. Zelma stood by the doorway, hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone would notice her. But their excitement drowned out everything else. No one even looked her way. She walked to her room, dropped her bag on the bed, and took a long breath. The sound of clinking glasses and laughter carried through the walls. She changed into a simple dress and returned to the dining room, forcing a smile as she sat down quietly. Her mother passed her a plate, without even realizing Zelma hadn't spoken a word. Her brother was surrounded by praise, everyone congratulating him, and sharing stories about his hard work. Zelma clapped along, her smile trembling as she tried to hide the ache growing inside her. At one point, her sister leaned across the table, asking their mother to give a toast. Her mother raised her glass, her eyes shining with pride. "To my son," she said, "the one who makes us proud every day." Everyone cheered and took a sip. Zelma lifted her glass too, but her hands were shaking. She swallowed hard, pretending to be fine, pretending it didn't hurt that no one had remembered what day it was for her. The dinner went on, filled with laughter and stories, but all Zelma heard was the silence directed toward her. Not one mention of her birthday, not one word of appreciation. When her brother cut the cake, her chest tightened. She had hoped to blow out her own candles that morning, but instead, she was clapping for someone else's moment. After the plates were cleared and the house grew quieter, she excused herself and stepped outside. The cool night air brushed against her cheeks, and she let a single tear fall. The stars above seemed to listen as she whispered, "I just wish someone had remembered." As Zelma stepped outside, the cool night air touched her face, and the tears she had been holding back finally slipped down her cheeks. She looked up at the sky, trying to hide her sobs in the quiet darkness. The laughter from inside the house still echoed faintly, reminding her of how forgotten she felt. She wrapped her arms around herself, wishing the night would swallow her whole. Then something caught her eye, a gentle glow from across the compound. She blinked through her tears and saw her neighbor Tari's balcony lit up with soft, colorful lights. At first, she thought it was just another celebration somewhere nearby. But then she noticed something strange. Balloons tied to the railing, a table set with a small cake, and a few people gathered with bright smiles. Her heart began to beat faster. She squinted, trying to read the banner hanging under the balcony light, and her breath caught when she saw the words written in bold colors, "Happy birthday, Zelma." She froze where she stood, not sure whether to laugh or cry. Her hands covered her mouth as disbelief filled her eyes. Tari stepped forward from behind the table, holding a candle in his hand. "Come on over," he called softly, his smile warm and kind. Zelma hesitated for a moment, then slowly walked toward him. The neighbors who lived nearby clapped and cheered as she approached, their faces glowing in the soft light. For the first time that day, someone had remembered. When she reached the balcony, Tari handed her the candle and nodded toward the cake. "Make a wish," he said. Her hands trembled as she closed her eyes, whispering a wish only her heart could hear. The crowd cheered when she blew out the flame, and music started playing from a small speaker. Someone handed her a slice of cake, and another offered juice. Laughter and warmth filled the air, washing away the pain she had carried all day. Across the compound, her family heard the noise and peeked out from their windows, confusion on their faces. Zelma looked up at them, smiling softly through her tears. For the first time in years she felt seen, surrounded by kindness that asked for nothing in return. Tari had gathered everyone from the compound that evening. The whole place glowed with warm lights hanging from the trees and walls, giving the night a magical feeling. There was soft music playing, laughter echoing, and the sweet smell of cake filling the air. In the middle of it all stood a big, colorful banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Zelma." For a moment, Zelma couldn't move. Her heart raced as she looked around, realizing that all these people were there for her, to celebrate her day, the one everyone else had forgotten. She felt tears forming again, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from happiness, from shock, from finally feeling seen. Neighbors she had barely spoken to came forward, smiling and clapping for her. Children danced around her feet, waving ribbons in the air. Someone handed her a plate of food, and another gave her a drink. She couldn't stop smiling. Even as her cheeks grew wet with tears, Tari stood a few feet away, watching her with a gentle smile, proud of the joy he had brought into her night. He walked toward her, holding the cake with its glowing candles. "Go on," he said softly. "Make a wish." Zelma looked at the flickering lights and then at all the faces around her, people who didn't owe her anything but chose to care anyway. She closed her eyes for a moment, made her wish, and blew out the candles. The crowd cheered, music grew louder, and someone shouted, "Dance, birthday girl." She laughed, feeling lighter than she had in years. As the night went on, Zelma danced under the string lights, surrounded by people who were happy simply because she was happy. Her laughter filled the air, mixing with the rhythm of drums and soft singing. She realized this was the first birthday she had truly felt alive, not because of gifts or decorations, but because of kindness. When she turned and saw Tari smiling at her from across the crowd, she mouthed a simple "thank you." He nodded, eyes full of warmth. That unexpected celebration became the moment Zelma's life changed. The night she learned that love and care sometimes come from places you least expect. The laughter and music from the compound carried through the night air until it reached Zelma's house. Her family, who had just finished cleaning up after her brother's dinner, paused and looked at one another. The sound of clapping and cheerful voices drifted in, mixed with the faint words, "Happy birthday, Zelma." Her mother frowned in confusion, and her brother went to the window to check. What he saw made his eyes widen. Lights, decorations, and Zelma surrounded by smiling neighbors. For a moment no one moved. The realization hit them all at once. They had forgotten her birthday. Her mother slowly stepped outside, her hands still wiping on a kitchen towel. The sight before her made her heart twist. Zelma stood in the middle of the crowd, her face glowing with joy, her laughter bright and free. She was cutting a cake, and the people around her were clapping and cheering for her. The same daughter who had left their house in silence that morning now stood radiant among strangers who had made her feel special. Her mother felt a lump form in her throat. The family quietly approached the gate, watching from a short distance. Zelma hadn't noticed them yet. She was laughing with Tari and sharing cake with children who ran around excitedly. Her mother's eyes filled with tears as she realized how easily they had taken her for granted. They had been so focused on celebrating one child's success that they had completely forgotten another's happiness. Her brother looked down, guilt clear on his face. When Zelma finally noticed them standing there, her smile faded for a brief second. The crowd turned to see who they were, and silence settled over the compound. Tari gently placed a hand on her shoulder, giving her courage. Zelma took a deep breath and walked toward her mother. Her mother's eyes were wet as she whispered, "We forgot, my child." "I'm so sorry." Zelma smiled softly, wiping her tears. "It's okay, Mama," she said. "I'm just glad someone remembered I exist." Her mother hugged her tightly, realizing how deeply she had hurt her daughter without meaning to. The neighbors clapped, and Tari smiled quietly from behind. In that moment, everyone could see it. Love doesn't always come first from family, but it can still find you when you need it most. As the music faded into a soft tune, Tari stepped forward, holding the microphone with a warm smile. Everyone turned to him, waiting to hear what he had to say. He looked at Zelma first, then at the people around her, and said in a calm, kind voice, "I'm actually an event designer. I plan celebrations for people every day, but tonight was different. I did this because no one should ever feel unseen on their own day." His words hung in the air, gentle but powerful. The crowd clapped, moved by his thoughtfulness, and Zelma's eyes filled with tears once again. This time from pure gratitude. Her family stood nearby, speechless. Her mother stepped forward slowly, guilt clear on her face. "We're so sorry, my daughter," she whispered. "We were so busy with everything else that we forgot what really mattered." Her brother nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "You've always been the quiet one, Zelma, but we never should have let that make us forget you." Zelma tried to hold back her tears, but when her mother reached out and hugged her, she broke down completely. The warmth of the hug, mixed with the cheers of the crowd, made the pain she had carried all day finally melt away. Tari placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and smiled. "You deserve this, Zelma," he said softly. "You deserve to be celebrated." She looked up at him, her heart swelling with emotion. "Thank you," she whispered. "You reminded me what kindness really means." Around them, neighbors smiled, clapping and cheering again, happy to see her finally smiling so brightly. Her mother turned to Tari, wiping her eyes. "Thank you, young man. You've done more for my daughter in one night than we managed in years." Tari shook his head. "Sometimes," he said, "family isn't about who you're born to, it's about who sees you when no one else does." The crowd fell silent for a moment, touched by his words. As the night ended, Zelma stood under the lights, surrounded by laughter and love she never expected to find. She realized that love doesn't always come from blood. Sometimes it comes from hearts that simply care. Bustias. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.